What a nice introduction. Hi everyone. If you know who I am, that's amazing. If you don't, nice to meet you all. Um, my story is not necessarily a traditional one, nor is it this big hype of, the beautiful side of advocacy that everyone pretends it is. But I really just genuinely think I'm your average New York, Long Island Jew who, like everyone else on the Zoom, was appalled by what's taken effect after October 7th. But I think my story begins before then. I grew up in Long Island as what I call a complacent Jew, meaning I grew up in a Jewish home. We kept kosher. We didn't necessarily keep Shabbat, although we knew the importance of Shabbat. I went to public school in which if you were not Jewish, cool, no one cared. And if you were Jewish, awesome. And then my parents said, you know what, we're sending you to yeshiva for high school. And then I went to North Shore Hebrew Academy, where I learned the importance of Torah, not Israel, but Torah. Now, growing up, there was never a conflict with being a Zionist. It was just different times. I'm 23 years old, I'll add that. So I'm still pretty young, but like throughout my childhood and teen years, it was never this polarizing to be a Zionist. In fact, I never even heard the term Zionist in a derogatory term until the more recent years. So with that being said, I never fought for Israel or my right of existence as a Jewish person in the United States because I never felt that I had to. It was live and let live, and it was beautiful. Now, what I noticed in the rise of Black Lives Matter was for some reason this animosity towards Israel, because at the same time as Black Lives Matter, for those who remember, there was also rockets being exchanged back and forth from Gaza and Israel. And that was the first war I can say I was old enough to remember. Of course, there was one in 2014. I was 13 years old. I did not have a say in anything. But this one I remember vividly because I posted something very innocent on my not as big at the time social media page, which was a cupcake with an Israel flag, and I wrote Chag Sameach, hope everyone's having like an awesome Yom HaAtzmaut, and that was that. Little did I know, my favorite NBA player in the entire world would write on my Instagram story, wow, I can't believe you're a Zionist. Now, my naive self is thinking it's a great thing. And I wrote, haha, yeah. And he wrote, not something to be proud of, in which at that point, I realized something was wrong. Now I'm going to go back to high school for a minute. I had my strong core and pride in being a Jewish student, but I learned nothing about Israel. If you asked me what year Israel was established 2 years ago, I would not have the slightest clue. And I didn't see a problem with that, which was the worst part. So now I'm given this bigger platform. You mentioned earlier, I have 2.3 million followers now. And with that, I believe comes a responsibility that if you're going to go out there and be a proud Jewish person, you should know about your ancestry and your belonging and the state of Israel. And that's something that was never brought up to me, and it was never a priority, and it was never taught to me. Another part of me grew up gaslit into thinking that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are not the same thing, and that there's a big difference in the two, and you can be anti-Israel and not be against the Jewish people. And I actually was okay with that for a long time, because as a big believer in free speech, I was like, you have the right to criticize Israel, and it's not personal to the Jews. I was wrong. And now, after October 7th, which is a different beast we're battling, I see that anti-Zionism was merely a mask to justify anti-Semitism and Jew hatred. So now let's fast forward to October 7th. I had more of a sense of what it meant for Israel to exist and how important it was, not only for the Jewish people, but for international diplomacy, why Israel is so important. But I didn't have the actual knowledge, and I didn't have the courage to be able to go out there and battle like I needed to. None of us asked for this. None of us wanted to be here. And none of these Jewish influencers who are defending Israel, truthfully, none of us want to be doing this, because we shouldn't have to be justifying why Israel has a right to exist. But we are where we are, and we need to be resourceful where we can. I wish I could write a check for $10 million and go send it to the IDF, but unfortunately, that's not where I am right now. Maybe one day. But I do know where my strength is, and that's using my voice. And I realized I had a big problem then. I really just did not know the basic facts, and I didn't feel confident enough to debate. Now, many people saw me on Piers Morgan. debating a very vile, disgusting human being named Nardine Kiswani. She's the owner of a pro-Palestinian group called Within Our Lifetime. Just to refresh your memories, they protested outside of a cancer hospital. They tried to burn down the Rockefeller tree. They chanted outside of the Nova exhibition in Manhattan, saying that we partied on gas chamber land, so we deserved what happened to us, and a million more vile things I could name. When I found out that I was debating this woman, I immediately panicked. I said, I'm not going to let my people down. I'm not going to make us look stupid. So I called Russell Robinson and I said, tell me everything about Israel. And he said, it's more than something you can just tell someone. We need to show you. And then I begun literal history lessons of Israel. I learned about all the wars and how British mandate Palestine doesn't mean it was actually Palestine, and literally Israel for dummies. And I was taking notes and notes and notes. Now, for those who watch the debate, we obliterated her, woohoo. But that was just step one of this very long journey and battle that we're all still fighting. I think it's really important for every single Jewish person to educate themselves on the history of Israel, because it's not only having a platform that enables the change. Obviously, it's easier when you could speak to a million minds with one post, but I've noticed that the biggest changes I've made were more behind the scenes. Think of it like this. If you have a colleague or a friend that's allegedly, I don't know, doesn't know the facts or wants to be ignorant about the facts or just really heard the wrong information, everyone doesn't understand that you have the power to change one person's mind. But if you change that one person's mind and they speak to two people and their two friends speak to four and the four speaks to eight, you're changing the world by doing that. And the problem is that everyone feels like it's not their job or it's not their responsibility or, well, I don't know enough. Well, that's on you, because you can learn the information if you just spend 15 minutes doing so. And what I also didn't realize, and I'm not just saying this because JNF is on here, but you have so many resources that can teach you the facts. Now, where I'm really privileged is my most recent trip to Israel after October 7th was less about visiting the kibbutzim and visiting the hostage families, which I did in December, but more about really seeing for myself what the history of Israel was. In my life, I never thought I'd have an opportunity to see Abraham's well. I mean, I didn't feel even worthy to be there. Like, why do I deserve to even see this? So when I went on this trip, for the first time in my life, I was given a huge map, literally the size probably of this wall behind me, that was trailing the journey that Abraham made into Israel, why he built the well where he did, where he left Isaac, where he left Ishmael, where he said goodbye to Hagar. And I'm watching history unfold before my eyes. Now, why is that so important for me to see? Because everyone's number one argument against Israel is that we weren't there. You know, we were welcomed after the Holocaust, and look how you're treating the ones who opened up their arms for you, and look how you're thanking them for their hospitality. And they will completely deny our history in the land of Israel, despite all of the archaeology being there. They say that it's planted. That's just a battle you're not going to win. But for the first time, I was allowed to see in front of my eyes why we were there, why we deserve to be here, and why we will always be there. And now, as somebody with a platform, it's super important that not only I see this, but when you go there, it's a lot different than just telling people. I always say you have to show, not tell. Use images, use imagery, videos, maps. You need to speak logic and facts, and you need to show people. Because when I speak, what do I hear? Oh, well, you're this Jewish, white, privileged Long Island girl. We don't trust your opinion. And I immediately get invalidated. So for me to be able to go to Beersheba is just one example of our history tying back to Israel. When I posted that on Instagram, I am telling you right now, there was not one person that could refute my claim. Not one. On a normal day, anything I post, they will find a way to dispute what I'm saying. This post, I had so many NBA players, because they're all Christians, so I think that they're Zionists, message me, wow, I need to see that for myself. I didn't know Abraham's well was in Israel. Just a lot of ignorance going around. So I realized then that this is super important. So for the rest of my trip, I realized that this show don't tell method works. Now, the hardest part about it, I mean, we've all seen horrific videos and just horrible pictures, is when, I don't know if I'm going to get anyone in trouble for saying this, but I really wanted to show the world that aid trucks are entering into Gaza because that's the number one, global outrage right now is we're starving them to death. And again, apologies if anyone gets in trouble for this. I asked the IDF to take me and they said no. I'm not going to name names, but I went with two folks from JNF to the crossing into Gaza from Egypt. Literally, you hear bullets being shot from Rafah, and there's literal rockets being sent back and forth, and the booms made me nearly deaf. And I run out of the van and I handed my phone to them and I said, record me right now. And you could barely hear over the gunfire, but you see in my video that the trucks are crossing into Rafah. Now imagine everyone's surprise when I just disputed all these lies you've been sharing in the media. Again, silence. Now, when it comes to Israel, for me, silence is a good thing because if it's not silence, it's usually some vile misinformation and rhetoric being spread. And the fact that the IDF couldn't give me the clearance to go there, but two folks from JNF brought me there. I keep saying it as a joke, like I owe you for the rest of my life, but truly, like they really just did such a big favor for me in terms of my hasbara. I can tell you a million times that there's food going in. Nobody believes me. But what can you say when I put my boots on the ground and I'm showing you that I'm there and there are trucks going in? It's just something that I was very privileged to do. And it's really something, I don't know if this is like a normal JNF thing, if you get to go there, but if you do get a chance to go to Israel and see all of these sites and really show the world, and I don't care if you think you don't have a voice, you do. Even if you changed one person's mind, you did your job. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about, which I'm very thankful for all of you for. Another thing is something really important to me is I'm a sports broadcaster, and I really feel like sports ultimately will bring the world together in a very nice way that nothing else can do besides team sports. So when JNF took me to Beersheba, and this was a very sad sight to see, and something I also shared on my social media, they're building right now sports complexes because Beersheba is a lot of just empty, unattractive land. But JNF had this vision that it could turn into this beautiful place. They built parks and sports facilities. And after October 7th, there's a gorgeous soccer field. So I posted a video, look, I'm playing soccer, everyone. And then the camera pans up and you see that there are literal poles knocked down from missiles. The roof was burnt to ashes. There's a gap in the ground as if a meteor had hit from rockets. So the video kind of twisted from, look, Emily's playing soccer, to like, whoa, imagine Emily was playing soccer and these rockets start hitting. And for me, being a sports person, I think it spoke volumes to everyone in my audience because that could have been you. That could have been you playing soccer, could have been you playing basketball. And then what did you deserve a rocket to hit your head for being a sports fan? So my point is there's a lot of initiatives that are super important to see. And if there's one point I want to emphasize and then maybe go into questions, if any of you guys have them, you could type them in the chat, is don't think it's not your job to speak up. And if you don't know where to start, again, I'm not saying this because it's a JNF Zoom. Everything that I've learned, everything I was taught, everything I've seen, everything I speak on TV, whether it's Fox News or CNN or on my social media, there's always a resource to learn from. And JNF has provided me with so much education. Literally at any time of the day, if I have a dispute with somebody from the Middle East, I'll call JNF, hey, they said that we're attacking Iran unjustly. What do I say? I'll get an answer in 2 minutes. So thank you to JNF for that, for helping me amplify Hasbara to the world that we shouldn't have to do in the first place. But I'm very grateful to be able to do so. And I'm grateful that I have a platform to be able to use. And whether you have one or not, it's all of our jobs to speak out. So thanks.